So, let's jump right into this really provocative theory about Japan's future. It suggests a complete rethinking of what it means for a nation to be powerful in the 21st century.
First things first, we've got to ask a pretty basic question. When we talk about a nation's power, what are we even measuring? Is it still just about having the biggest army or the highest GDP, or is there something else we should be looking at? Well, the whole idea we're exploring today is that those old metrics, they're kind of obsolete. There's a completely different framework for understanding how countries actually compete and win in today's world.
All right, so let's see how this new framework carves up the world. And it's not a simple ranking, from best to worst. It's more about countries playing three very distinct strategic roles. Now, this is what's so interesting. It reframes the whole idea of global competition. You've got Tier 1, which is basically the US, providing the digital platform for the world. Think of it like the operating system. Then you have Tier 2 nations, like Japan or the EU, who are users of that platform building their own stuff on top of it. And finally, Tier 3, countries like China and Russia, who've decided to build their own separate closed-off systems. The source is clear. This isn't about who's better. It's about totally different strategies for the long game. So let's dig into that Tier 1 power, the United States. What makes it so dominant?
Well, it's a kind of power that looks nothing like the old empires we read about in history books.
You really have to get this concept to understand the whole argument. America's power doesn't come from conquering people. It comes from providing an open system that everyone wants to use. And by accepting limits on its own power, things like regulations and public opinion, it builds trust. That trust is what allows it to get so huge, to a scale that no closed system could ever dream of. And this is where it gets kind of counterintuitive. You hear a lot about how countries like Japan are being drained by US tech giants. But this theory says, nope, that's not exploitation. It's actually a totally rational fee for using an incredibly powerful, low-cost global infrastructure that would be astronomically expensive for any one country to build on its own.
Okay, so if Japan wasn't just being exploited, then what really happened in the big digital race?
Well, the argument here is that Japan didn't actually lose. The entire battlefield just shifted under its feet.
This slide just lays it out so clearly. Japan absolutely mastered the old game, manufacturing. That's a world where making things better costs more money, and being physically excellent on the factory floor is everything. But the new digital game, it's got a totally different rulebook. It costs nothing to copy software, and network effects mean that the biggest player wins. The fundamental laws of the game just changed. So the key takeaway here is that it was a strategic mismatch. Japan trying to beat America at the platform game was honestly like bringing a perfectly crafted samurai sword to a battle that's being fought with drones and code. The tool was amazing, but the fight was completely different.
So if building a global digital platform isn't the answer, what is? Let's look at the alternative path this theory proposes. It's a model that focuses inward, not outward.
Just take a look at these examples. Denmark, Switzerland, Singapore. They've become elite nations by focusing on things like quality of life, trust, and social order. Their power isn't like America's. It doesn't come from being open to absolutely everyone. It actually comes from the opposite, from being very, very selective about who gets to join the club.
And that brings us to Japan's own secret weapon. The argument is that Japan has these unique, physical, non-digital assets that give it a massive advantage if it wants to become one of these elite nations.
This number right here, it's a huge deal. It represents Japan's continuous imperial line. Think about that. It's an asset of deep, deep tradition and stability that you just can't manufacture. You can't buy it, and you certainly can't code it into existence.
And it's not just that, right? We're talking about ancient cities, world-class public safety that's almost legendary, clean and dense cities, and a culture of craftsmanship that's second to none. These are real physical cultural assets. In a word, they're unbuyable. And it's something that the abstract, forward-looking digital world of the US can never, ever replicate. Okay, so Japan has all these incredible, uncopyable assets. How in the world does it turn that into a winning strategy for the future? Well, the answer is a pretty radical shift in how you think about success. And this slide just puts the two strategies side by side. It's a stark choice. While America is playing a game of infinite digital expansion, constantly chasing growth, the proposed path for Japan is to focus on its finite, high-density, physical reality. The goal is no longer to grow, but to preserve. I mean, this is a complete change in the national objective. Instead of chasing that treadmill of endless growth, the new goal is to become a curated nation. One that is protected, one that people deliberately choose to be a part of, and one that's built to last for centuries to come.
So how do you do that? Well, the idea is that Japan needs to take all those unspoken social rules and turn them into actual official policy. This means being selective about immigration, making residency dependent on real integration, putting public order above everything else, and shifting from mass tourism to high-value tourism. And look, the point isn't about shedding people out. It's about protecting the very assets that make the country so special in the first place.
And we'll end on that final, powerful thought. Shifting from a strategy of growth to one of preservation, that's not admitting defeat. According to this theory, it's actually the ultimate victory. It's a conscious choice to play a different, longer, and maybe even wiser game, making sure that Japan's unique civilization endures. It's a fascinating way to look at the future, that's for sure.